What is happening?
Still getting over this sickness. I'm so tired of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I
That
think everybody, I mean, it seems like it's just multiple things going around right now.
there's some bad stuff out there right now. My wife was actually out in bed almost for the whole day yesterday.
Oh yeah.
With
I
some
was in bed for 3 days. Out of 72 hours, I think I slept for like 60 hours.
well, at least that's a mercy. Man,
Yes. But it was just I ran a fever for 3 days and then my husband got it, of course. And we still don't sound great and we're still like so tired. But I'm glad I guess I got it out of the way before Christmas.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad too. You look like you're doing better.
Thank you. It's fake. It's not real, but thank you.
Do you mind if I record? If I might turn this into content, I might not. But the question is, I think, a question a lot of people will benefit from hearing the answer to. So,
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind. I don't know how content worthy it will be, but
yeah. Well, you dropped some bombs the last time we had an interview on camera. So I got good feedback. Did you see? I actually editor and publisher. You know editor and publisher magazine. You familiar with them at all?
uh-uh.
They are the trade magazine for city or for daily newspapers and really all media, but you probably haven't heard of them because they don't focus specifically on city regional magazine, but they, all print publishing media, mostly community newspapers.
Hmm.
But they put our whole summit on their website and have promoted it for us, and so it's getting out there.
That's cool.
Yeah. Uh, So we only have 28 minutes. I want to try to get the most out of it that I can. So me and Caleb were having just a little origin story. We were having a meeting and
Okay.
we've been talking a lot about, okay, how do we help our partners maximize revenue on their lists? That seems to be kind of our job, right?
Mhm.
Like to help
Yeah.
and to be able to come with like the blueprint. I've noticed Second Street does this extremely well. Like Second Street has a product, which is their best of machine, but then they have so much process documentation. Like this is exactly how you do it. And if you do these things this way, then you will make X. Like they're very much like that. And so we're like,
That's
okay, go ahead.
that's a good idea. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, where do you start? You start with the people who are doing it the best, And so I would say proportionately, pound for pound, you're, consistently one of the best doing it. 417 magazine. I mean, you consistently clear, if I remember correctly, over 100K on the top doctors. I'm sure you enjoy similar success on the other top list. Do you do best of?
We do best of, but it isn't a huge revenue generator for us. It's just the way that we've chosen to do it is more audience focused than revenue focused. So it's not a huge revenue generator for us.
Yeah, I'm sure you have really good reasons for why you do it that way, though, because it's part of your. I won't even dig into that because I know you do things a little differently, which is why you're able to command that high loyalty and that high price point. Or I don't know if it's a high price point. I'm assuming it's a decent price point, and then you're able to hold firm on your pricing and get such incredible frequency and renewal rate.
Yeah.
Is because you make certain choices differently than other people make them. So I'm not going to question you on that. So anyway, we were like, let's reach out to the people that we know that are doing this the best and see if we can start to bottle up what it is that they're doing that gives them this consistent success, specifically in terms of mechanics,
Hmm.
like the mechanics of the campaign. So I'd love to hear you just overall talk a little bit about how, do you see yourself as successful with top doctors? Are you hitting the goals that you want? Do you feel good about that? And then maybe on a high level start talking about why that's the case.
Well, I think that, I'm a salesperson at heart, so I'm never happy with where I'm at. I always
Yeah.
want to figure out a way to do more.
Yeah.
And we're a pretty scrappy team where there's just three of us sales reps. And so our top doctors list ends up being, I don't know, around maybe 800 people.
Yep.
We're not, I don't know how that compares to other markets. I know some magazines have a lot more. And so we're constantly focused on long-term contracts, and Top Doctors is one of the kind of anomalies where we realize it's probably just going to be a one-off.
Yep.
And so we try to automate as much as we can to sell Top Doctors. And I wondered, with you, when they do submit for the survey, is their email address included in that?
If you want to vote, you have to provide your email address.
Oh, I don't know if we get that on the list, but if we could get that, that would help us with our automation, because right now what I do is I create a data formula in Excel, because the hospitals here have kind of a formula as far as what their email address is. It's first name dot last name at hospital whatever.com. And so I created a formula in Excel that will pull those email addresses, because we don't normally have a lot of those in our database, because
Yeah.
we try not to add just random people to our database unless they are truly a prospect or purchasing. And the way that we handle Top Doctors selling it, there are definitely some phone calls involved, but doctors are hard to get a hold of. So
Yes.
our first step is reaching out. We pull a historical run sheet in Ad Sales Genius, which is now Media OS, and we pull like a 5 to 7 year historical who has done faces before, or not faces, sorry, Top Doctors. And the first reach out is to the people who have done it before, particularly in the last year. And I mean, a lot of times that's, do you want to do it again? Yes or no. Last year you did a full page, and trying to automate that as much as possible. And then I'm going to be working with sequences this year specifically for a lot of things, but Top Doctors, I'm going to do a sequence in it's Mix Match is the email extension. And I'm loving it so far. I just started using it. I'm just learning it, but I'm absolutely loving it so far. And basically presetting 8 to 12 emails that would go to these doctors, asking them specific questions, where when they click a button that says yes or no, it will either take them off the list or prompt me to give them a phone call at a certain time. And so I'm just kind of learning that tool, but I've only been using it for about a week, and it's already making a huge impact. So I'm super excited about that tool. And so if you do have the email addresses, I don't think we're currently getting them. So I don't know if 417's not getting them or the sales reps aren't getting them, but that would be a huge help, because the first line of defense for us is to email. The editor does send out a letter congratulating people themselves, but it is not sales oriented. So they should have already learned that they're a winner, but many doctors do not apparently read their mail. So they're hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
And
Very
so
hard.
it's really, you've got to have a consistent reach out. Our first line of defense is getting everyone who has already been in before to answer us. Do you want to do it again? Yes or no? Trying to keep that revenue. And then, to be honest, we probably only add a few every year. And so I would absolutely love to have the ability to add more. And the email addresses, in my opinion, would be huge in that. And setting up some really automated templates where people can click a button, and you can do this in Media OS too, and probably other CRMs, but I'm going to be using Mix Match. And literally, if they click, do you want to know more? Yes. Or no. And if they say no, it takes them off the list and out of the sequence. And so really it's persistence. But because we as a magazine are not living and dying by special sections,
Yeah.
we can't completely pivot.
Yep.
It's just not our business plan to completely pivot off of regularly reach out to prospects that could be 6 and 12 time contracts to stop everything and work on Top Doctors. So we really have to be doing two things at once.
Yes.
not to quote Travis Kelsey,
Yeah.
but two things at
Yeah.
once. And so we have to be working on top doctors in the background while we're still building our long-term business.
Okay. So much there. So many questions there. Okay. Um, man, this is good. So you said persistence is the key, which I think most people would say, yeah, I get it. But it's persistence, the concept is different from persistence, the reality.
Yeah.
Persistence, the reality is no, it has to do with automation, right?
Mhm.
Like we have the systematic mechanism in place to make sure everyone gets touched as many times as they should. How many companies can really say they're doing that, right? Like they're really squeezing the lemon in terms of touching everybody the appropriate amount of times in order to get the contract. Very few,
Yeah.
very few, right? Mike,
Ryan Doran and many other people say it's 12 times.
yeah,
So when I create my sequence for, we call it first rate physicians for the advertising section. When I create my sequence, it's going to be 12 touches, which at any point, different actions they take would take them out of the sequence.
yes, I love it. 12, even that is probably a gold nugget for somebody to take away, which I'm sure they could have heard it from somebody else, but they may not have. But I'm going to go back to even the beginning of your process. So one thing that you do differently is first there's an editorial outreach that goes out, and that's a letter, a congratulatory letter, and it's got nothing to do with sales, which is interesting. Most people don't do that. Most people, their initial outreach is both congratulations and here are some opportunities if you want to advertise. But I think because you are so rabidly dedicated to creating this engagement experience with your community and not coming across salesy, it makes sense that you do that. Now, you feel good about that mechanism, the way that you guys are currently doing it?
Yeah, it's nice. We know when the editorial team is sending the letters and when the letters should hit the doctors, and then we usually wait a couple of days before we start reaching out. So it's nice, in theory, they already know, but the truth is, I would guess a huge percentage of them still don't know because they don't read their mail.
Right. Right. But anyway, number one, that's the first touch, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is a purely editorial touch. It's
correct.
It's pure we want to bless you touch versus we don't ask for anything that first touch. Then a couple days later, you're pulling a report out of Media OS, and which I mean, awesome tool to enable you to do that, right? Because you can now look you said 5 years, something like that. Everybody who's
usually pull 5 to 7 years. Yeah.
5 to 7 years. All right.
Because we just are looking for anyone who's done it, especially, those people who do it year after year. And then we're, reaching out to them first to try to secure that money that we've, know that we're trying to get. And then we want to grow it on top of that.
Right. So you're doing that, and those are your most likely to close prospects, are the ones who have done it before and will do it again, most likely. So that's number two. Now, where the final frontier, and I'm going to say even within that group, there's a sequence. There's a sequence of touches, and you're trying to refine that sequence of touches,
right,
to yield more and more kind of passive conversions, or at least stimulate more conversions through not missing anybody in that pipeline, right? And then I think the third frontier is, if we're looking at in terms of the next phase, is how are we going to reach out to the people that haven't advertised in the past? So that's your widest net that you're casting, with your least percentage rate probably of conversion, because it's people that haven't.
Right.
But every time you get somebody with that bigger net, they're going to go into the other net, which has a higher likelihood of closing in successive years, right?
Yeah.
Now, you asked me about email. So we collect email at the point of nomination, right? And so that means that however many people nominate, every single one of them gives us an email address.
Right. But the doctors that win don't necessarily, I get it. Yeah. So that's where my formula comes in to get to those people. Another thing that we do that I think, we do this with it pretty much every special section, is we send a link to last year's special section to try to create fear of missing out. They see who was in it last year, or it reminds them that they had a full pay, that, oh yeah, man, that looked good, so they can easily click through that. Very rarely do we get appointments for this special section. I mean, it's very rare.
When you say so you mean you're usually not closing business face to face, is what you're saying? It's usually
No, not with this special section. It's very tough to get to it's very tough to get to I mean, we do have some appointments, but it's not that common. It's more often than not done. We would certainly take an appointment,
yeah.
but it's more often than not, yes, I want to do it. How much is a half page? Or, yeah, and so then of course, as we do with every other thing that we do, once they have raised their hand of interest, we put together 3 option packages saying, okay, here it is. If this is all you do, but you're a cancer care doctor, and we also have a profile section in October for cancer awareness.
Yeah.
Here's what it would look like if you did both of those. Here's what it would look like if you did a full-on campaign with 417 and we're in 6 issues per year. So no matter what we're pitching, if we're pitching a special section, even top doctors, we do always send package options once they've raised their hand as interested.
And about what percentage would you say, and I don't need exact, but what percentage would you say of doctors actually bite for the frequency play?
It's a low percentage. I mean, maybe 10%.
Okay. That's not nothing.
No, I mean, and some of those are 12-time advertisers, some of those are 4-time advertisers, some of them just do 2 special sections. We offer the ability to repurpose a profile.
Yep.
So all of our profiles can be repurposed. Only a full page can be repurposed. Half page can't be repurposed.
Okay.
Mostly. There's some other things, but
Right.
so medical profile could be repurposed. Like a top doctor's profile could be repurposed to a medical spotlight in the month of their choice. So once we've done all the creative and writing for that, they can repurpose it in any other issue for half price. So good for us, good for them, good for frequency, gives them more exposure. And when you lay the math out for them, it sometimes is an easy sell.
Did you say it's half price?
Pretty much half price of the open rate. Yeah. So
Okay. All right.
It's at least $1,000 savings. So
Yeah.
it's quite half price. It's about $1,000 savings.
Now, do you push faces during that as a part of your frequency play?
Well, we're pretty particular about our faces. So we can't just be pitching faces to anyone. Only if it's a category that is open, and then we take it to the faces board at 417 to decide whether or not they could be a face. So we're pretty particular about our faces. And we had our largest faces magazine will be this January, biggest ever.
How many profiles?
What's that?
How many profiles?
65, I think. 65.
Dang. Y'all are killing it.
Which I think that just beats our second year by 1. So I think our second year we did 64, and then it's hovered around 58 to 60, and then this year we beat our record.
Yeah. Yeah. So we should probably do another interview like this about faces at some point, because your way of doing faces is actually very different is also different, but it's because you have this other layer on top of it of we're going to do a little vetting. Right. And so it's much more, the way that you do faces is much more invitation only, as opposed to most markets, it's rake in as many as you can. And then, on the back end, they're saying, oh, okay, well, you can't have this, but we can create a variation. Right. So sorry. But family law the face of family law is taken, but maybe you want to be the face of, I don't know, generosity.
Happily ever after not happening or whatever. Yeah. And so we did a little bit of that our first year. I mean, we do still break out categories like which we're not talking about faces, but like dentists, we do family dentistry, face of cosmetic dentistry, pediatric dentistry. So we do break up stuff, but the first year we did some stuff like, really, really needling down and what happened was those people didn't renew. And so we had to make it more special.
you special because you are playing it. See, here's the thing, special for long term. I'm just taking a note because you're looking at it in terms of renewal. That's how you're judging.
Yeah, we got to keep this thing going. It's too good. I mean, it's too good to not have.
And a lot of people aren't because
It's surpassed our top doctors issue. It's our biggest issue of the year.
I would expect that because when I did a research study asking people about to rank their sections and even give me revenue for their different sections, and this was years ago that I did this, faces was number one, docs was number two, lawyers number three, and then dentists and realtors kind of the jury was out on those in terms of which one has more revenue potential. But faces, I think, is your anchor product. I think to some degree faces is the opportunity that a city regional magazine can give to the general market that the market can't get anywhere else.
Mhm.
Right? Because what makes it special? I get to basically hyper specialize myself
Right.
in the area of my corporate superpower, and I get to tell the world, and then also it'd be a human connection with me or my team. There's just nothing out there like that. So I think it should be your top producer
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Okay, but still, I gotta ask one. So let's say somebody that's looking at this, if we release this, is a first year doing top doctors, right? Because what you've just told me is, hey, expect it to be a slog and expect that most of your revenue is going to come from renewal. So make sure your renewal engine is tight. That's job one.
Yeah.
Renewal engine, renewal sequence needs to be tight. But let's say I don't have renewals because I'm starting at year one.
Right.
What is that is that an uphill battle? What does that battle look like to try to get that critical mass to make the product successful for many, many years to come?
Well, it is very different. So one thing that when I started at 417 13 years ago, one thing that no one had really kind of thought of, and it ended up being a mess every year, is when doctors are in, like, so we have a list of these doctors' names, and we would just divvy up, like, you get these 50, you get these 50, you get these 50, whatever. And then we'd be walking down the road and sometimes calling these people and finding out, oh, well, that lady handles all 7 of these doctors, and 3 of them are on someone else's list, and 2 of them are on someone else's list. And so we became very aware of that. And on the sales side, we actually now sort the list before we divvy it up. Of course, if the person's already under your name, you get that person. But we divvy up the list based on address, suite number, floor, things like that, to try to guard against, because there's no salesperson likes to walk halfway down the hallway to get a contract and then find out that, oh, that doctor is actually assigned to somebody else. I was calling her about this doctor. That doctor doesn't want to do it, but I've talked to her for 3 days and she wants to sign a contract for a different doctor. It's not on my list. So we try to alleviate that. The other thing is, when we get the very most doctors is when we have a new sales rep that has time to actually just call. And the thing is, the current sales reps, we don't have time to call 800 people. And so really trying to drill down, can you tell me who handles the marketing decisions for this person, and making those phone calls. And so this is one of the first years in a long time we have a new sales rep. And so she's probably going to be getting a big part of that list because she doesn't have a big book of business and she's got the time.
Yep. Love it. And
So
so
I said, if you don't have a big book of business and you're pretty new, then, you may have time to make those phone calls and to dig in and to find who is the person that handles this. We used to, and I don't know that they still do it, but we used to have the 2 main hospitals in town. They each do a newsletter weekly or monthly, and we would let them know and ask them to announce it in their newsletters. And one of them was more willing to do it than the other, but that was a nice, helpful too.
Right. And you're talking about the advertising. So not just, now you're talking about actually leveraging the hospital to make the advertising opportunity aware, raise awareness on that.
Yeah.
That's unheard of. I've never heard of anybody being able to pull that off in a market. But okay. So that's a great answer to that question, that it is going to be, so it sounds like having your sequence, basically trusting that if you knock on the door the right amount of times in the blueprint and you have your sequence set up, then you're going to start getting more and more people into that funnel. And then you just need to prioritize the people that have advertised in the past, because that's your highest conversion rate.
Yeah. And I'm looking for a no just as much as I'm looking for a yes. I mean, I'm just as I'm excited to take somebody off my list either way.
Yep. Looking for a no as much as a yes. I'm taking notes, and I don't need to take notes, but it just helps me. All right. So, but then my bigger question for you, now the visionary side of me is coming out, the dreamer's coming out. It's like, how do we turn Top Doctors into a frequency, something that fits right in that sweet spot of a frequency play for 417 or for anybody? Because to me, that's where the product becomes ultimately the best asset it can be to your organization, is if the frequency play starts to jump up from that 10% number up into 20%, 30%, 40%, right? Like, now we're really talking, right? Because now we're talking about an engine that's driving your core product. Because I think you'd probably say your core product is frequency. It's not one-off advertising.
Right.
And so I'm getting ideas for that, actually. I'm asking the market about that, and I'm getting some ideas for that. You don't do a medical directory, do you, at any point?
No.
I'm not talking about an online directory. I'm talking about like basically a compilation of, hey, we're going to republish. Here's doctors, and maybe you wouldn't do this. I don't know if this would fit within your brand aesthetic, but some people do kind of do here's all the health stuff that we did over the year, and we do a compilation issue that's focused specifically on that. And then that's at least a 2x frequency, because the list is coming out twice. But that it also has its drawback. So I don't know. But go ahead and evaluate that. Tell me what you think.
Yeah. We don't do that. We used to post, so within the editorial list on our website, we used to go through and highlight the people who purchased a profile. So like theirs would be in bold and be a link to their profile. And we did that up until last year, but that got kind of taxing on the team. And so through a new product we have through Broad Street, which we use for revenue. In other cases, it's a digital gallery, and we use that for revenue for other verticals. But for Top Doctors, instead of doing the native piece where we're going in and tagging all the people who purchase a profile, we've put them in a digital, it's like a Brady Bunch looking giant with their faces, and it links through to wherever it wants. And so we do that as added value.
Yeah.
Because we don't think our people would pay for it. They probably would, but I don't know. But we replaced our native content with that. And so it may not be a revenue generator for the sales team, but it's a time saver and for the inside team. So they're not doing as much back end. So overall, the company, we feel like it's, better.
Yeah. You weren't making enough revenue to make it, the cost savings is a better consideration than the revenue for that. All right. I'll be thinking about that, actually, because a part of my blueprint will be, one of the questions I'm going to wrestle with is, how do we take Top Docs and legitimately turn that into an attractive multi-advertising frequency opportunity? And you're doing some, like, you're definitely doing some. You're saying, oh, here's the content, here's the issues with the content that's complementary.
Mm-hmm.
And you're giving people the opportunity. So you're thinking it through for them when you send them the package. Times a year when it would make sense for them to advertise. But I just wonder if we could push that even further to something that would be, that would make it a no-brainer for more people to sign up for frequency. I don't know. But you've taught me a lot, and I don't want to. So we're at 11 o'clock, so I don't want to wear out my welcome. This is gold, though. I appreciate it. I might have a few more questions in email to send you. But for now, I'm gonna exit, and then Caleb can help me turn this into the beginnings of our blueprint.
All right. Well, good talking to you guys. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you as well.
Yep. Hope you feel 100% soon.
Me too. Thanks.
All
Talk
right.
to you later.
Bye-bye.